I'm Trisha Gupta, and I'm an Indian woodblock artist. I am also a second-generation immigrant. I'm very passionate about immigrant rights because my family immigrated here. So my work traditionally has been about home, and it's centered around people's narratives when home has become unsafe or has become different from them through transition. So what I usually do is I look at monuments, and then I talk about the events that happened in relationship to those monuments. I make narratives around them that are different than what they were supposed to be commemorated for, but more importantly, show the shifting meaning of something to somebody. I was curious about how that story changes, because not only do people choose to lose their community when they come here, they lose a lot of their lives. And I talk a lot about how we stay in connection with our family and how there's this duality of having or being in two places that have similar purposes, but not necessarily being the same culturally. And because I'm an Indian woodblock carver and I do woodblock design, I've really loved the fact that I do this sort of medium that's very community-based. I was interested in trying to figure out, like, how do we bring this medium to people here? How do people get a chance to have that interaction? And a lot of the immigrants that I met initially at the Open Table Initiative didn't really have that opportunity because they often didn't speak the language, and some of them did, and they had tremendous strengths. And for me, it was just one of those moments where I really felt connected to them on a human level. I was like, this reminds me of my parents, my family, all of the people in my lives who've come here. And I really wanted to have people work with me on this art project to sort of declare who they are, what they wished in the culture, in a way that would be anonymous but also personal, where they could control the imagery and where they had the ability to sort of process some of what they're experiencing now with the culture that's around them. And I also wanted to be there to be an example of many, which there are so many wonderful examples, of people who are welcoming and also understand their immigrant journey. One of my purposes, because this is a protest in of itself, is to work with other immigrants. And I think that that's to help them process and to deal with pain. And that in and of itself, that act of working with somebody and giving them that processing and that ability to express themselves is part of it. It's half of it. It's like some of the most important work. By acknowledging other stories and sharing them, we give them voice. We're creating 2 saris right now. One that's going to be printed blue on indigo with black ink, and one that's going to be printed red with black ink. And the red is based off of matter and based off of passion and protest. The blue is based off of indigo, which is a cool river plant, and it talks about, for me, home. These colors are my reference to my home and my culture, and I'm using them to share them with others as well as the process. So that's sort of the artistic product. And then we'd like to take these saris and use them actively in protests. We like to put them up specifically at events. I mean, nowadays we don't know with the current culture what's going to happen next, but we want to be able to have Amnesty members take them and use them in protests. And we want to also define specific times or turning points where we'd like to display them. We'd also like to take the block, which is actually going to be a really large block. And one of the things that we do is we have this dinner, and the dinner is a meeting where a lot of new immigrants come in, and it's a potluck. And so what we want to do is we want to have that table be there, as well as we want to have that table be at protests where we might bring dishes and eat at it. The idea being that, share or, really get to know your neighbor, be involved in the discussion. I'd like to have people who are culturally diverse, ethnically diverse, to be at this table to sort of represent what has been really the view of what America is and its possibility, which has been its ability to adapt and to take on others and to be able to support their views and give them their own freedom of speech and their own access to opportunity, which has been critical to the definition of what people thought of as America. So that's really what we're making, is the table, the saris, and then also having these dinners that are going to be held with immigrants in the community. So protest-wise, we want to get 10,000 signatures minimum. They be going towards the human rights disparities, the 5 points that we're working on that we want to eliminate. So it would essentially be people who are saying, we do not approve of these conditions and we want them to no longer occur. I think ideally, I really want to take it to at least 2 protests where we do the table initiative, and then I'd like to hand it off to other people to use in other areas with Amnesty. Because I think part of the power of it is building momentum and taking that visual and transferring it to others, giving it to others to share.